is why it can become easy for you to be the most praying person, and you are the worst person when it comes to hearing the voice of God. But the moment you get used to pray and you are talking to God, it takes the grace of God to remind you that you have to shut up sometimes and listen to the God that you have been praying to. Prayer can also become so entertaining. You enjoy it when you are flowing in prayer. And you can go on and on and on and on and on for hours. You see, your problem now is that just spending hours in prayer, that's your target. Hearing the voice of God is not your target. So you can be there for hours praying and you're excited. And even the devil himself, he can allow you to get into all the dimensions of tongues. And yet you don't create an opportunity for God to speak back to you. The reason why we find ourselves in a place of prayer, it is so that we speak to God so that God can also speak back to us. I've met prayerful people. I've met prayerful people. You guys listen to me. I've met people that can pray, but they can't hear the voice of God. How can you pick your phone and you start talking until the end of the conversation and then you cut it? That's not communication. Without God speaking back to you, it's not prayer. You're talking to yourself. You're talking to yourself. Just like when the pilot is about to land, there has to be a very, very strong communication between the pilot and the traffic controller. The traffic controller will always try to remind the pilot to identify himself. Tell me what is happening there. There has to be a connection from below and connection again from the top. One on top has to speak back. When you pray from here, it has to respond. He has to reply from up there and also speak back to you. Are we together? When you feel like praying and you get into a moment of prayer, I remember there are times now I can openly confess that I'm no longer praying the way I used to pray. Maybe it's because of too much responsibility that I now have. But still, the way I pray now, I think I'm trying. But then, I remember there were times when I would pray for up to 20 hours because I didn't have anything else to do. I would go for 20 hours and stop. Then if I rest for one day, then I get again into another prayer for 20 hours. I'm not saying you should be doing that. You get fired if you try to do that. You can't. But I'm saying I didn't have any other thing to do. So I had a lot of time. That's why some of you right now, you don't have anything to do. You don't realize that this is the only opportunity that God is giving you. Very soon you'll be very busy. It's better for you to pray now. Any chance, any opportunity that you have, pray. Why should you just be sitting there and doing nothing? You have to pray. 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 That's what I used to do, and up to now I'm still praying, but we can't be talking of hours and so on. The most important thing is not how many hours you spend in prayer, but are you able to hear God when He speaks? Because if you speak to God for 24 hours and then God doesn't speak to you even 2 seconds, that's not prayer. You are just talkative. God has to speak. When you pray, especially when God moves you into praying, you feel like, hey, I have to. You feel it in your spirit that you have to pray. The moment you get into that room and you begin to pray, you have to know that it was actually God inviting you to come and listen to Him. Listen to Him. So create a place of prayer. Create a place of prayer. Create a place of prayer. I remember in those days, even back then when I was still in Bulawayo, I would go to far places. Those days I wasn't driving. I didn't have money to buy myself my own car, but I would make sure that even from the morning after breakfast, I would walk out of the house, and then I would pray as I move around. Walk very, very long distances. Sometimes I would realize after maybe 10 kilometers that I have to go back. And then I'll begin again to walk back. It will be 20 kilometers non-stop, and then I'm just praying. It differs. Some people, they prefer kneeling down. Some, they prefer lying on the floor. It's up to you. Find your test. Find what makes you comfortable when you are praying. Are we together? Yes. So the environment where you pray, it has to be conducive. Find a place where you can safely pray. No interruption. Nothing should disturb you. If there is a lot of noise in the house, if you like noise, that's okay. Try to look in the inside of you. Find what you enjoy the most. Because as prophets, sometimes we enjoy it. Sometimes I prefer, even if I'm praying in my car, I would switch on the radio, put on some worship CDs, and then raise the volume high. And then as in the middle of that noise, I enjoy it. I like it. That's me. I'm not saying everybody should do that, but I'm saying discover yourself. What motivates you? What encourages you to pray more? Go for such an environment. Some prophets, they don't pray. Like most of the prophets that I know, they don't pray in their offices. They normally would want to go out where they would view nature. Some, they like trees, stones, and he's there praying. So we can't make a doctrine out of that, but try to find a place which makes you more comfortable when you are praying. Are we together? Yes, there has to be a place which makes you more comfortable when you are praying. A tower. I will set myself upon a tower, and then I will watch. Remember, Jesus said something, watch and pray. Right? So as you are praying, how come the prophet of God is talking about watching? I will watch and see what he shall say. So he is there not just to hear what God is going to say, but to see what God is about to say. How can you see what God is going to say? How can you see? Then that brings us to something now, that when God is communicating, the voice of God sometimes can come to you visibly. How can you watch and see what God is saying? This is not hearing, this is seeing. Now, I will give you the first channel now. When you've made up your mind, you are going to be a prayerful person, the one that is always ready to get into the presence of God, and you are praying every now and then you are, the moment you continue doing that, and you are praying and you are praying and you are praying, you are developing your sensitivity. Your spirit man becomes alert to the supernatural. And the only way you can become sensitive to the supernatural is only through prayer. If you are not prayerful, it's a true sign that the carnal man or the physical man is in control of your entire life. Do you know how many minutes I spend praying? With all the grace that God has given me, every time I come here to minister, I am afraid of this place. I pray to God. I need a confirmation whether I should be standing here or not. Every single sermon that I've delivered here, I have to hear from God. Why? Because that's what makes that sermon relevant to the majority of the people that are listening. You can find a good teaching, find a good sermon, and it can be irrelevant to everybody that is listening. And you're wondering, what's wrong with this? It's not because of the message that you have delivered, it's because of the person that has delivered the message. If you are not prayerful, don't do anything in the house of God. Even ushering, even decoration, even these recordings that you find, even catering. As long as you are not prayerful, don't find yourself doing anything in the house of God. You don't qualify. You don't qualify. You don't qualify. If you are not prayerful, even as a leader, take an offering basket, move up and down. Count the money yourself, how much you've collected. As a leader, it's not just because people, they don't want to give, but who is the person that is coming to collect my money? Because some of you, because you know, especially when you are a prayerful person and a person who is not prayerful approaches you, there is some form of resistance that is created. You feel like the devil has come to rob you of your money or something like that. I'm telling you, this is why there are people that when you meet them, it's easy for you to give them money before they can even ask. Have you noticed? There are people that you can give money without them asking you for that money. And yet there are people that can come to you asking for money and you're not ready to give them. So imagine if a leader who is not prayerful is coming to collect money from you and you are prayerful. So your prayer life can actually reflect on the offering that you take. So there is nothing for you in the house of God if you are not prayerful. You have to pray. It's a must. You can't do without prayer.